What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Smoking Tire Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. You know, life insurance, home insurance, car insurance, they're a big deal. And it's annoying that for something that's so important, they are so complicated. And if someone relies on you financially, whether that's a child, a parent, a business partner, life insurance gives you peace of mind that they have a financial cushion if something happens to you. And typically, life insurance gets more expensive as you age, so it's smart to get a policy sooner rather than later. If you're worried about price, Policy Genius makes it easy to compare your options from top companies. Policy Genius can make sure you're not paying a cent more than you have to for the coverage that you need. Having life insurance through your job may not even be enough. Most people need up to 10 times more coverage to properly provide for their families. Whether you're graduating from school, planning a wedding, welcoming a baby, switching jobs, now is the time to protect your family's finances. And Policy Genius is your one-stop shop to find the insurance you need at the right price. So head over to policygenius.com to get started. In minutes, you can compare personalized quotes from top companies to find your lowest price. You could save 50% or more on life insurance by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. The licensed agents in Policy Genius are on hand throughout the entire process to help you understand your options and make decisions with confidence. The Policy Genius team works for you, not for the insurance companies. Policy Genius doesn't add on extra fees, doesn't sell your info to third parties. They have thousands of 5-star reviews across Google and Trustpilot, and they have options that offer coverage in as little as a week and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policy Genius has helped over 30 million people shop for insurance and placed over $150 billion in coverage. So head over to policygenius.com to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. Policygenius.com. Oh, baby. How about Freedom Grooming? They have some amazing products that they sent over to us to check out. And Freedom Grooming has the Flex Series electric shaver, uniquely designed to flex and contour to the curve of your head for a smoother, faster, and safer shave without the risk of nicks, cuts, irritation, or ingrowns. I have, in case you didn't know this, a shaved head, and so this is perfect for me. It really helps mold around the curve of my head better than traditional buzzers. Also, traditional blazers. And man, they are supporting hair-free customers and their journey to baldhood. Look, I was started to lose my hair, and rather than try to really pathetically weed it out, I went full bald, and I'm never going back. What I really like about the Flex Series electric shaver is just the way that it matches the contours of my head. It really made the shaving experience faster, closer, easier, smoother. I mean, it's awesome. It's really great. You can use it on your face too if you want, and you can shave 50% more hair in a single stroke compared to traditional razors. You can expect shave times, full head shave times of just 2 to 3 minutes. The Flex Series Safeguard technology means no nicks, ingrown hairs, or problems, and it's waterproof, meaning you can shave your head in the shower with or without shaving cream. You can shave wet or dry. So head over to freedomgrooming.com/tire. That's freedomgrooming.com/tire to thank you for being a loyal listener. We're partnering with Freedom Grooming to give you an exclusive 20% off at freedomgrooming/tire. All right, 20% off. All you got to do is use our link, freedomgrooming/tire. You'll never shave your head the same way again. How about Upside? Upside is a really, really neat piece of software. From cringing at the pump to getting an eye-popping check at your favorite restaurant, inflation's hitting us all where it hurts, and it really hurts. And that's why I started using Upside. Upside's an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. Basically, everybody. And with every purchase, I'm earning cash back thanks to using Upside. I used it at the gas pump just the other day to fill up my BMW M3. It was super, super easy. I just pulled up the app. It brought up a map of businesses near me where I could save money and get cash back. I went to that gas station, boom, and then the cash just went into my bank account, which I linked through the app. All you got to do is download the free Upside app in the App Store or at Google Play. If you use my promo code SMOKING, you get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Next, claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You can check in at the business, pay as usual with a credit or debit card, and then you get paid. In comparison to credit card rewards or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back with Upside. You can then cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or get an e-gift card for Amazon and other online shopping centers. Upside users are earning more than $1 million every week in cash back, probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use promo code SMOKING to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. It's very easy. It's like 5 minutes to set it up, and then all you got to do is shop for the things you already would be shopping for and save. You get cash back right to your bank account. Upside app, code SMOKING. Last but certainly not least, we got Berryman B12 Total Engine Cleaner. It's for use in all 2-stroke and 4-stroke gasoline and diesel engines any season. I have a business, as some of you may have known, Westside Collector Car Storage, and cars, they sit for a long time, right? And so you need something to keep that fuel system from getting gunked up and clogged up, and that's why I really like this Berryman Total Engine Cleaner. In the crankcase, it dissolves and disperses gum, sludge, and other residues for better lubrication and longer shelf life. In the fuel tank, B12 disperses moisture, cleans out your injectors and carburetors, and gives smoother top engine performance, reducing repairs for lower operating costs. And the Total Engine Cleaner will stabilize gasoline and diesel fuels for more than 1 year. That's the part of this that really speaks to me, because a lot of the cars sit for months at a time, and even though at Westside we warm them up, cycle the engines once a month to make sure everything is running as good as it can be, that fuel stabilizing technology really helps make sure that the fuel doesn't break down and cause problems in the tanks. And that's why we use this Berryman B12 Total Engine Cleaner in every tank for every car we've got in long-term storage at Westside Collector Car Storage. Berryman products are all American made since 1918, and Berryman is available at your favorite automotive retailer, auto parts store, or at berrymanproducts.com. BERRYMAN products.com. All right, folks, in part 2 of our 3-part Pikes Peak series, today we are at the workshop with our pal Joey Seeley of Emotion Engineering and driver Rhys Millen, who are going for an overall win here at Pikes Peak, the 100th running of the hill climb. These guys are, super, super interesting. Joey has a lot of experience building incredibly detailed and nuanced, fine-tuned racing machines at his shop in Emotion Engineering. The guy is just a genius, and Rhys Millen needs very little introduction. Incredibly accomplished racing driver. This is his 26th year racing at Pikes Peak. He is part of a legendary racing family, and he gives us some incredible tidbits about racing, not just this race and this track, but also the car and his background. And then after we talk to Joey and Rhys, we jump in an Acura MDX and join racing driver, Acura factory driver James Robinson as he takes us up the Pikes Peak course and shows us some of the nuance of how to drive this course at speed. You may want to watch the second part of this podcast on video. The visual aids may help. So, Joey Seeley, Rhys Millen, and James Robinson are on today's episode of the Pikes Peak edition of the Smoking Tire Podcast. Thanks for the time, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Today was my first day on the mountain. It was fun to watch. How'd you guys run?
We ran fantastic. We were right on to, right where we wanted to be. You know, like everything's been kind of, for the most part, going off without a hitch. You know, we did our testing, we did all of our development, and we got here, and we were quickest on Tuesday, we were quickest on Wednesday, and then qualifying today, Rhys was on fire and set the qualifying record.
That's insane. And Joey said that you had, before a month ago or so, Rhys, never driven a Porsche race car before.
That is true. I've driven, a few for magazine shoots and bits and pieces, but at speed in a real race car, my first experience.
So are you a convert now? What did you, getting out of that car for the first time, did you go, oh, this is the thing?
I think there's two parts to that. Yes, the traction is incredible. I always had this fear from many years ago, sliding one around and spinning one, that they just would not stick the rear. But when you put them into a racing environment with the setup that Joey's guys at Emotion did, the grip is ridiculous to whereas it's pulling wheelies. And even today after qualifying, we're still going to go stiffer on the rear to support the rear for more stability out of the front because the grip is silly.
How many times have you run up the mountain before? How many years have you been here? A bunch.
Do we talk about that?
Are we not supposed to?
Really? 26 years.
26?
Yeah.
Is that the most of anybody racing right now, except for maybe somebody else with your last name?
I think I've eclipsed Dad.
Have you?
Yeah. My first year was 1992, was my rookie year at 19 years old.
And what did you drive for that?
Was a four-wheel drive tube frame Mazda RX-7 that my dad used to win the SCCA Pro Rally Championship the previous year.
Oh, is that a first generation RX-7?
That was the FC. It was like Gen 2.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Was that full? That's full dirt.
Full dirt. We ran on a rally tire. It was 300 horsepower at sea level. Normally aspirated rotary engine, two rotor.
You're used to saying three rotor by now.
It's
like
it's 4, 5, 6, whatever.
So
the car maybe at the start line had 220 and 160 at the top, but the car was so well balanced, great, easy to drive.
Do you remember your time?
12:29.
12:29. Okay, and without jinxing it, what is our target for this year?
I gave Joey some exciting news at lunch after doing calcs on all three sections plus the bogey times that you do not get to run between finishing qualifying, start of middle section, and then same for
a few hundred yards in there.
It's like 10 seconds on the top and 12 on the bottom. It'll put us below 9.
That's crazy. So in those 26 years, has it really felt like it's moved from a rally to a road race, or it's from a rally to a time attack? Did it feel like a rally back then?
Yeah, very much so. And even to that point in 2005, SCCA ran the event as a rally event. So every time you ran a section, as we did today, we did 3 runs on the bottom and 3 runs in the middle, or 4, and 3 on top. They actually counted towards your total stage times.
Oh, that's interesting.
And then we did from the toll booth to the bottom to the start line at 1 o'clock in the morning as a tarmac stage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
At speed or a transit
speed
stage?
Time.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, the event is very much like a rally event. And although it has changed into tarmac, your setup is maybe still on the soft side of rallying.
Well, because it's super bumpy.
Yes, but your approach to driving has to still be very much circuit racing style.
Mm-hmm. Joey, what are you? I mean, the car is crazy. Give us the once over of the car, the boilerplate items.
It's a 2016 991 GT3R. As the donor, we stripped it down to basically the tub. The only thing that really remains is most of the suspension geometry, but we even changed the stroke of the dampers, and obviously the setup is specific for Pikes Peak, but different wire harness, all new electronics, all new oil system, fuel system, cooling system, and we backdated the engine. We went back to the Metzger, which everyone knows is the workhorse, and that was something that the only way to have confidence in a turbo GT3 power plant is with the Metzger, and then adapted the transmission to fit it. But very little aero, which is something that he wanted to do, and I did too, but time and money, that's something that we would address for next year. But that's about it. I mean, we have great partnerships that got involved, like Pennzoil and Pirelli and VP Racing. Alcon built a brake kit for us. It's a one-off kit that is, there's been a few things on the car that we've put on and forgot about because they've just been so good, and that's one of them. Is
that brake kit like remotely close to something that you could get in a street car or even a club sport kind of car? Or is it totally unique to this?
It's a race caliper kit, and so you technically
it's a work of art.
It's a work of art.
I saw the car with the wheels off. It is very beautiful. Yeah.
So you could
a strong argument against ceramic brake option.
Yeah. You really, in all forms, you want to manage heat. Here at the mountain, and braking is one of them. So we went with a really light caliper, all sized the way we wanted with our pad compound that we have developed for Pikes Peak.
Do you have, in terms of braking, when you're driving the car, Rhys, do you find that because you're going uphill and because it's cold outside in general in this part of the world, do you find the brakes like overcool in between sections, or do they, because you're going from 100 to 30 repeatedly, that they maintain their heat?
Yeah, I think it's you have to address brakes for sure. They have to be good to survive. I've run up here. My dad in 1994, when he set the world record dirt time, ran out of brakes in the middle. And that's a team of many engineers with a Toyota-funded program with a specially built unlimited car. They thought they were safe. They still ran out of brakes. You move into some of these GT cars like what we're running here and what I've run in the past, and they're seeing 1,200 degrees, and they're like, oh, that's fine. We're still seeing probably 850, 900, but it's well within the scope of the performance level of the brake components. But
that's funny as a comparison when you're going down the mountain and they make you stop and do your brake check for regular folks
at about 400.
It says 300.
Oh, is it 300?
It says they make you stop and cool unless your brakes are at 300. So you're talking about 4 times the temperature of that.
Right, and we addressed it here. We actually took cooling away to build heat and maintain.
Yeah, that
heat
was kind of what I was getting at, was to let them actually stay hotter.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We've got enough time that they do cool down enough, which is actually, I think, more than anything, yes, you could get it wrong and show up like a lot of people do in all forms with a road race setup because it's paved.
Right.
It's not at all the case. It's not the same car. It is closer to rally. It's somewhere in between. So if you came with an endurance pad, you would not get any temperature in your brakes to begin with. Yeah. So never mind how much they'll cool down.
Obviously every year this is hard. The cars get crazier, the road changes, the weather is, who even knows, flip a coin. But when it was those years where it was tarmac and dirt, how do you approach that versus now where it's all tarmac?
Yeah, so that you're right. Between 2007 to 11, there was that mixture, and those years were really tough.
That's a wild car. You got to have a crazy car that's going to work on those two sections together.
And then even on top of that, they laid in quite a few of the culverts. So you had like a 3-inch raised, sharp concrete edge that you dare not touch as well. You would run a rain tire because you wanted it to work on pavement and you wanted it to work on dirt. And it was a crapshoot on what you were going to go for. Was it going to be more of a slick, an intermediate, or a rain? So those were the biggest challenges on suspension setting, on balance, on aero, on everything.
Yeah.
It sounds like a nightmare. Because honestly, as it is now, I tell people you're engineering a car to run 3 different races at the exact same time.
Well, that's what Jeff said. This morning he was like, "Yeah, there's 3 sections. They're completely different.
Completely different, and you have to be ready for all of them."
Yeah.
Which we have, we have always been very good at the top. He, in all of his years, and me in my much fewer, that's where we excel. But we really needed to make sure we had enough juice in the bottom.
Are you allowed to, and do you have the capability to change the settings of the car as you go up the mountain?
No.
Only on the engine mapping. As really the change comes in.
Boost by altitude, as it were. Yeah.
But on the chassis, we've we've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
Between cambers, and casters, and tire pressures, between shocks and dampener settings and rake. I won't go into all the details, but the car's really pretty good in all three sections.
A lot of variables, and it's, to be honest, like you guys know, I do a lot of street car tuning, and that's I can't say that's why I'm good here. It's the other way around. I've managed to do dual purpose customer cars because of this mountain, because you want it to work well on the bottom, which is like going to the racetrack, and then on the top is like it's so bumpy and so harsh, like a regular road in LA.
Sure.
You know, you want it to do both of those things. So really, it's this race that's helped me do the street car stuff.
With this car, how much are you setting the car up for Rhys versus how much is Rhys learning to adapt his driving style to this car?
We started off with what I know with these cars, because I know.
Yeah, you said you started off the way you set it up, the Jeff's 935,
Right,
as a baseline.
Our baseline, and that gave him the taste. And then we slowly went into, more and more changes based on what he wanted to see and what I wanted to see. And it was more for me to wean him into it instead of chasing setup. Wanted him to, get more comfortable and familiar with the car. And now he's on it. Like I haven't worked with somebody like Rhys that knows the setup as well. Maybe Pat and Jurg back in my ALMS days, they could engineer their own car. He can engineer his own car.
How quick did you adapt to this, Rhys? Because I know you've driven a huge variety of cars in a ton of different situations, like rally, stunt, road racing. So like first day out, were you adjusting how your brain works and how the car performs versus something front engine, or was it within 2 sessions you went, oh, I get it, let's start working?
It's probably been a longer process than I expected, just because, again, this first time in a Porsche with a rear-engine car. We had it soft, but then we've added so much more torque and power to the chassis than we've had before that then completely changed. So we went out and did a couple of tests with the car as a baseline, and then we added power, and we're like, oh, we're starting over again.
How much power do we think are we making right now?
At sea level, we were 1,000 at the wheels.
So that's a lot. It's a lot, but it's not the most I've heard. It's not a number that it's not a shocking number.
Horsepower sells.
Yeah,
so
of course it does.
people go for horsepower, and honestly,
non-social media horsepower. That's real world
right.
racing.
Right. Yeah, it's not a one dyno pull horsepower.
Yeah, right.
But the torque was probably the most impressive part, is working with Garrett on turbocharger sizing, exhaust housing sizing of the turbochargers, knowing what I had done in the past up here, and then handing that information over to Joey. So the torque hit is phenomenal, and that really disrupts the balance of the chassis. And we're still chasing that a little bit today. Mitch from M Tuning has been giving us a little bit more each day, and each day I need to make a chassis, or we need to make a chassis adjustment to stay in balance. But the first experience, back to your start of your question, Joey set up a day out at Thermal Raceway.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of customer cars out there.
It's not very much track for a car like that.
Customer street cars.
Yeah,
okay. Some of my client builds.
Oh, right.
Yeah. We went out in a GT2 and a GT3 just to kind of give me a baseline. And that was about 3 to 4 weeks before the first run in the car. So I had something to kind of process and know when I hopped in the car, either a confirmation that it should be more like that, or yes, this is the same as that, and we need to move forward from here. We went to a silly little track, which never makes sense to anyone when you go there, Horse Thief Mile.
Oh, yeah.
Horse Thief Mile.
It's good for car commercials. That's about it.
Yeah, well, I was there on Friday and Saturday doing a commercial for Dodge.
Right, yeah, perfect.
So, but it is, to me, the ultimate Pikes Peak setup track.
Because up and down, and because
hairpins, acceleration, loaded boost runs, whatever you call it, torque runs, and it really shows at low speed roll and power out how the chassis is going to handle.
It is a weird track. It reminds me of like a set of brass knuckles. It's like this sort of a W shape.
Yep.
But it seems to put a lot of stress on cars.
Oh,
because of the up and
brakes
down.
and acceleration.
Yeah.
So if you put that in the scope and presented it to, say, a true GT racing team, they would just sit there and go, "You're stupid. We're never even going to go there." Yeah. But I took the Bentley folks there, and that's where we started as well. And it really is the foundation for why the car is doing so good on the mountain now.
Yeah.
He was so fresh, just having run the Bentley last year. It was like, it's like it happened yesterday. So to just follow his steps, go to Horse Thief first, get the acceleration out of the corner dialed, then move on to streets, and have a little bit more speed and, start to
have a procedure for this.
He had a procedure and that he did before, so we followed it, and he had his expectations.
The
and
Bentley was
benchmarks.
production car based, right? Wasn't that
Very much same as this.
Like this?
Yeah.
It was a GT3.
Oh, it was a GT3 Bentley?
Yeah.
Right. And what did you end up doing with that? The time
It split the intake manifold on race day, but it was pretty rowdy before then.
Was it a 12 or an 8? It's a
It was
V8,
the
right?
twin turbo 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't crazy nose heavy or anything like that. It had pretty decent balance.
It has the engine is on the ground. The transmission was a Ricardo in the rear with everything else. So it's literally
not
like
a Bentley.
the crane was 2 inches off the ground with a torque tube. Yeah.
Every cylinder was behind the front axle, and the oil pan was the subframe.
Oh, that rules.
The intake manifold was below the towers. It was. It was a beautiful car.
That's pretty cool.
And it honestly, I came last year just kind of doing recon because I hadn't been here since 15, and was just showing my face and watching him run, and the car was amazing, and he was mopping everybody up.
Yeah.
So that was my benchmark. I was like, if we can be close to the Bentley, then I've done my job. Which, after the first test, he kept going back. He's like, we're right there. We're right there. We're right there. And it's been that all along. And in some cases, we've been quicker than the Bentley. So
that's awesome.
We're pretty proud of that.
What do you credit the speed to on those sections you're quicker than the Bentley? Is it you have more power with this car, or more grip out of the corners, or is it technology's evolved?
Yeah, it's not just grip. It's grip and response. Bentley had tall gears. This thing's not far off it, to be honest. But we worked really, really hard with Mitch from M Engineering, sorry. Just
he does
driver.
tuning.
Just a driver. And number one was starting statically with the turbocharger sizing, as I mentioned before, and then moving into getting the variable cams to kick in to get the torque response, and then filling in the gap finally with adding ALS and jacking the throttle to keep the RPM up and so forth. And today was kind of the first time that we really ran it clean and crisp, and I just focused on running the car to the road rather than making changes every run as we had done multiple runs before for multiple days. So I think it's just the weight over the rear wheels. You can get to throttle so fast, and that's the experience for me. There's a grace period in driving a front engine car where you brake release, you roll the radius of the corner, you wait till track out, and then you feed the power in. This, let's say on your radius, this is half of it on a front engine car. The Porsche is kind of down to a quarter. You can brake deeper, and then you just hammer the throttle so early, and the grip is stupid.
Wow.
Who do you guys see as your biggest competition on race day?
Mother Nature. Yeah. And whether or not the car will just do as we've expected. You try to control the variables. That's been what we've talked about most this whole month, is controlling the variables that we can, because there's so many variables that are out of our control. But as far as the cars go, that's...
we're combined sections. We're P2 overall, behind Robin Shoup and their crazy unlimited little Wolf, true built sports car. And in class, I'm going to say we probably have around a combined 12, 15 second gap. So it's comfortable, but we've got a personal goal, and that's to be below 9. So I need to still hustle on a dry road.
What does the weather look like right now? It does.
It's been calling for rain all week.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's the percentages have dropped a little bit over the last few days, but it's I think 60% chance of thunder showers. So
if it rains, what do? Do you have rain tires?
You can't get through tech without rain tires. They stamp them, so you must arrive here with rain tires, because it's it's the mountains, and it happens almost inevitably every day.
But is it? I mean, you still drive, right? You still drive if it's wet. You still have a go. It's not like, well, we're not going to get sub 9, so forget
no,
it,
we
right?
still go. And the only time they stop us if there's lightning or if there's ice, because it's often if there's rain down below, it's ice up top. So,
Rhys, what's the worst conditions you've raced in at this mountain? Have you raced in a rainstorm before?
Oh yeah, rain and snow, 94. No, not 94, it was 95. They shortened the course. It was all dirt, so you had great traction. But it was, like 2 inches of water pouring down through Glen Cove. And you're just spraying out the side like you're going through a river crossing.
Oh, and you have real visibility issues, I imagine, at that point?
Yeah, all of that. We got caught out last year. Not caught out, but they qualify every time you're on the bottom section. So we qualified on Thursday, like today, last year, and it rained for us. So we qualified 19th last year, just because the fastest group were on the bottom during the wet.
Didn't they shorten it last year also?
They did shorten it because of ice on the road up above. I think they'll try their best, seeing celebration year, to hopefully keep it clean. But we have options from Pirelli with a full wet, an intermediate that we're now allowed to groove ourselves. We had a little bit of a challenge at tech and registration because there was a really weird rule. And in tech and registration, they said you cannot hand groove a slick tire. And I kind of battled the tech steward, and I just said, this is crazy, this is unsafe. And I experienced this last year. The Porsche team, it's funny to be on the other side right now, but the Porsche team protested me and made me take off my hand groove slick tires because I was going for an intermediate for qualifying, and it would have been the right answer.
You groove them yourself?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Is that like a Kiwi thing? You grew up?
No, I think it's just a rally.
It's just a rally thing. I figured, every time every Kiwi has one specialty, and there's a circle of guys. Like you probably know a guy who casts aluminum in their shed, right?
Oh yeah. 2 parts Ford, 1 part Chevy.
Right. I figured you would be the tire groover of the group.
Yep.
What is your special Kiwi racing skill? Aside from driving, of course, would it be grooving if you had to pick one?
I think going back to just the driving part, keeping it real, because I won't talk about my other skills because they're behind closed doors. For me, one of the first experiences of driving was mounting tires, and I learned so much from that simple application that you put into your realm of tricks when you're driving the car. If you mounted a Michelin tire and you mounted a Pirelli tire, you're going to figure out really quick the difference in the sidewall construction and what PSI it took to seat it on the wheel. That gave you a perfect starting point when you started driving that tire of how much support, stiff or soft, and how hard you could lean on the tire to debeat it. This is talking and rallying. And then that same thing transferred over to off-road and then to road racing as well. So
that's super interesting,
It seems really simple when you talk about it, but I don't think there's many drivers that mount their own tires.
Yeah. Well, it often comes down to very simple things that you're willing to do yourself.
Put it in my book of understanding.
Cool.
And doing so a year and a half ago, I had one explode and take my hand off. But
is that how that happened?
Yep.
Oh shit.
Yep. But
at least it's bent the right way.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my other Kiwi skill. I can actually stir your coffee really, really good.
That gesture works for other things as well. Why do you hand groove your own tires versus, I guess, do companies not make a tire that has the compound and grooves that you would like?
It would typically be specific to the conditions. Okay. Obviously up here, you're not going to do anything as a slick tire on a paved road. But when you go to Baja, if there's sand events or dirt events or rock events, and specific to...
You could do the little scales, those little kind of grooving?
Yeah, you could do chevrons, or you could do braking, or you could do radials for turning. It becomes very, very specific.
So it's almost...
It's cool.
Wow,
it's really neat.
I didn't know that existed. That's amazing.
I would love to do a whole series on the Rhys Millen School of Tire Grooving. I know you don't want to give away the secrets, but I think it'd be a very interesting thing to do.
Rallycross was very important when we ran the Red Bull Global Rallycross Championship. Tire grooving was allowed, and it was an art form to get it right. I think one of my biggest social media posts to date was one of my engineers grooving a tire and me filming it just because people had never seen this before.
Yeah, well, it's not like a lost art. I haven't even heard. I mean, it's been years since I've heard someone talk about grooving their own
Short
tires.
course off-road racing, it's still, very, very much the key to getting the success out of the tire.
That's so interesting. That's really
It's
cool.
another form of chassis setup. When your damper settings, your spring rates, your alignment, your brake pad compounds, your gear ratios, your limited slip, aero, all that stuff, and then you just add another variable. Not just tire compound, but then you have. And here it's important. That's why he really fought for it. It was a safety thing. You don't have perfect conditions, and there's a wet or there's a slick for the teams like us, and that's a big gap. And you sometimes need something right in between.
What does it mean for you as a small business owner and an engineer and all that to win here, to set a really impressive time here? How could that affect your life and business going forward?
Stuff like this just gives you legitimacy. You can talk the talk, like a lot of people do, and then when you have an opportunity to prove it, obviously there's no better marketing. What it means for me is, I've raced for many, many years and voluntarily left pro racing, and this is the only one I care about doing anymore. And this is a passion race for all of us, for Rhys and most of the other teams, and you'll see it because most teams are willing to help each other out. We did it today, helping get a car started. Paul Dallenbach's battery died, and they ran over to us. And we had the quick little plug-in for them, and ran down there with a full-size battery in the plug-in to help him get his run. So it's a dangerous race. It's a very difficult race to engineer and to drive, and so to do well here is just a huge personal accomplishment. So if we pull it off, there'll be some emotions.
We've already pulled it off.
Yeah. From the outside, like I was here in 2020.
By the time they hear this,
it seemed like from the outside looking in that there is, to support your point, like a deeper camaraderie among the drivers and teams here. I don't know if it's because it's a weird race or because it's dangerous, and maybe you can speak to this, Rhys. Does it feel different than like a rally or a Baja or a road race in terms of that, like people willing to help each other and kind of glued together?
Yeah, for sure. The first test weekend that we were here, I was flying out of the airport out of Colorado Springs here and ran into Ken Block and asked him how it was going, because I know he hasn't been up here for years. And he's like, I'm struggling a little bit on remembering the road, and had a co-driver come out and they wrote pace notes. And I'm like, well, that's good and all, but you've got a single seat car, he can't sit with you. So I shared with him that we use a system called Lead Nav down in Baja, and we pre-run recce the course, and you drop audible waypoint notes. So literally every corner.
Is that allowed in Pikes Peak?
So he could put an iPad with literally every corner as a right 6, left 4, right 3, tightens to 2.
And the iPad would read him pace
And then
notes?
he would put it through his earpiece and he'd read it out. Did he apply it? I don't know, but I was willing to help.
Do you run with that on race day, or is that something you just use to learn a course?
This is what we use in Baja racing.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
just Baja.
but I know the course very well, but
Understood.
it was a point to trying to help someone.
Sure.
If his game's good, it's going to push me.
Right.
Well,
He
and
did that
is
today.
it also because it's one car goes at a time, so it's not like an advantage to you necessarily means that you shove me off the course into the barriers. Is it a little bit of that as well?
I think in our nature combined, we like helping people. You'll give them some secrets, you won't give them all the secrets.
Yeah.
But again, I enjoy being pushed. I enjoy the pressure, and I know Joey does, and we saw that today. There was a guy running in the open wheel category, Cody Vaschholz, and he was going quick. And we're like, okay, we need to go quicker. And we went 2 seconds quicker, and he went 2.2 seconds quicker. Not in our class in a winged crazy car, but still it pushed us to find just what we wanted for a time.
You don't compete for just for the hell of it. You want to win, and you don't want to win with no competition.
Right.
You want to win against the other best.
Yeah, you don't want to win because the other guy's battery didn't start at the start line.
We're disappointed that we don't get to run against Ken and the BBI clan. That's what we've been looking forward to.
Well, that car did seem pretty nuts. I mean, that's a tube frame race car that sort of looks like a Porsche.
It could have been really nuts, and it will be.
It'll be nuts.
It'll be nuts
it
in a year's
still
time.
nuts, even though it broke. It's still nuts.
They need a lot more time in development to get it there. Even without breaking, it wasn't there yet. So we look forward to it, and I look forward to running against that car, just to. And whoever else comes next year, that kind of a thing.
And I love that you guys are in the same class, but the recipes are pretty different. Like they're running this all-wheel drive crazy thing with this adjustable suspension and stuff, and you, by comparison, are more traditional, even though your car, when it stands, even at Porsche yesterday at the dealership, there's 50 cars there, and yours definitely looks like the most interesting one that was there.
Well, you guys have known me for years.
Still a production-based car underneath all of that.
Right.
It's not a tube frame car with a Porsche skin on top of it.
Right. And you guys know me, we've been doing this kind of stuff for years, and my approach is always very subtle. Focus on the fundamentals and get them right. And let that, let people see that, it's not a marketing thing of like, wow, 1,600 horsepower, whatever it is. It's like we just are, quietly doing our thing and fast as hell.
Right.
Yeah. I want to let you guys go because you've got to set up your car. But last thing before we go, your dad is here with this.
It's awesome.
This awesome Tacoma that is most certainly not a Toyota Tacoma. It was last raced what in the 90s?
It was.
How long ago? 20 years. 21 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was raced here on dirt.
Totally.
Now it's being raced on tarmac.
Yep.
And not to ask you to speak for him, but Zach and I have been to the Leadfoot Festival. We went in his driveway in New Zealand.
Good.
One of the coolest motorsport events in the world. So much access. You're right there. Those hay bales. Who are we kidding with those hay bales? No, you're kidding with the hay bales. But what's it like to have this be a family affair again with this sort of very vintage race car that your dad is racing alongside you?
Yeah, it's very cool, and this is really a brainchild of my influencer guy over at Pennzoil, Andrea. He sent me this idea. The car was just parked in the corner and there wasn't really any intent of running it. I had previously, about a year ago, pitched to the sanctioning body at PPIHC that they bring out a Legends class, do a GoFundMe, have all the spectators fire in $5, $10, $20, $100, and bring back Ari Vatanen in the Peugeot, Michel Mouton in the Audi, and then Dad with the Tacoma and so forth, and just have a exhibition run with all the past legends and iconic cars. It fell on the wayside, and then randomly
corporate money.
2 months later, the guy from Pennzoil said, "Hey, let's bring out the Tacoma." I pitched it to Dad, and he's like, "Well, we need to do this, we needed to do that," and the fuel had an additive that is no longer available.
Oh, good.
So we had to change the fuel.
What does it run on now? Like methanol or something?
No, now it's on a VPC16.
Oh, okay.
But back then it used a fuel which is pretty much like a paint thinner called toluene.
Oh, yeah.
And
I know that name because there's a good reason they don't use that shit anymore.
Right, and it had an additive that you would blend with it literally just to create ignition. And we couldn't get the additive. So we had barrels of toluene, but couldn't get the additive.
Isn't that what the world's fastest Indian guy would run in his motorcycle?
I know.
It's all jet
I
fuel.
think that's what Burt Monroe was running
Good
in
old
that.
Burt.
Yeah, the legendary Kiwi
Yep.
Burt Monroe.
So we fired this thing up, put it on the dyno, and we took it to the dyno, literally like 3 weeks ago or so. And Larry Chen's been doing kind of a back behind the scenes piece on this. And it was quite funny. You had the engine tuner from EFI. You had the dyno guy who tunes all my dyno runs on our off-road cars and so forth. And he goes, "Well, what do you want to make out of this thing? What is the engine?" And we're like, "Oh, it's a 2.3 liter four-cylinder." He's like, "Well, like 450 at the wheels?" This guy didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there under my breath going, "I'm pretty sure the wastegate spring on this is about 25 to 30 pounds." So he lightly tips in and he's like, "Turn the add-on on the wastegate off." And he's like, "It's off." He's like, "This thing's making 30 pounds of boost."
Wow. Cool.
58 pounds of boost in the day that thing used to run.
Get out of here, really?
1,100 horsepower and 550 pounds of torque.
Four-cylinder.
So we're running it.
It rules.
So we're running it at 30 pounds a boost this weekend. So it's at about 900 horsepower, not 1100.
And did they have to change the setup drastically for tarmac, or does it just?
We haven't done anything. Just
Great.
Just
Original
send-
tires,
good old-
too.
good old 72 years old. Just send Dad up the hill. She'll be right, mate.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
So we had a
wild.
couple of tuning issues on Tuesday on the top section where it was so lean that we couldn't communicate. We couldn't get the car to run. We came down. We did some tuning down at PPIR, the local racetrack here. Got it ready for qualifying, and it was still off. But Dad managed to do 2 clean runs, qualified, and now we're going this afternoon to do some more tuning on it to get it ready to do a full pull. It's not for time, it's for exhibition, and it's truly amazing to hear
but
that
it's so
thing
cool.
echoing through the mountains.
It's the
so
100th.
cool.
It's the 100th. It needed to, something like that needed to happen.
Yeah.
It's a shame they didn't do the Legends class, but
Seems
at
like a
least
good
one.
idea.
At least one.
Yeah.
Just a driver, not marketing.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. I can't wait to see that thing run on Sunday. And
Can I quickly ask? I know you guys need to do so. How did you guys get hooked up for this year?
Well, we have a very good friend in common, and we've worked together before,
Okay.
just and very lightly, but raced against each other here when I was with Jeff Zwart, and then I helped him out in 2017. But this year, I didn't have my driver locked down, but we were building anyways because I had options, and
you did not respond to my email, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Yeah.
But
He did respond to my email, but it wasn't complimentary. If there were more left-hand corners, he said, the ballast would have been helpful. But no.
So when his Bentley thing wasn't going to happen, he was looking for a ride, and of course we're neighbors, basically Huntington and Costa Mesa. But I think he was talking to Jeff Zwart, who's also my landlord and our stepfather.
I wore this watch this week in honor of Jeff. This is the Jeff Zwart model Panerai, the blue with the blue on there. I wore it for him. He shows up in a show part, that bastard.
Yeah, it's
No
a shame.
loyalty.
So yeah, when he talked to Jeff, and Jeff didn't say too much, and just kind of teased him a little bit as to what I was up to. So then he called me up and said, "Hey, caught wind that you're building something pretty special. My Bentley deal is not happening." So I said, come by. And I think a day or two later he came by the shop to see what I was up to, and I think another day or so we shook hands to go for it. Yeah. It's been a treat, honestly. He's so fun to work with, and I mean fun. Like his
Look at his face.
his gift
Can't.
his gift game. His gift game.
Look at that
strong.
finger. That finger says fun. That finger says, I had a lot of fun right up until this shit happened.
It seems like you guys are kind of coaching each other.
To be honest,
together to build this car
he's
and
pushed
event.
me to get out of my comfort zone, which I typically am very good at, like trying out new things, and my approach to tuning cars is very different than other people. But we've tried some stuff that is way outside, and I thought I was already way outside, and it's worked.
Cool.
And we have what's fun. He's so involved in the development process, not just chassis setup, but everything from the oil cooling and the water cooling and aero and this and that, and because he builds cars for a living as well as obviously driving them. But the chassis tuning's been a lot of fun. All of the other stuff we've not misstepped. Honestly, every step of the way we've gotten better and better and better and more forward. And yeah, sure, we got the qualifying record today, which we were gunning for, and we wanted to get into the 40s, which we did. And we actually are making another chassis change because we both know it's the right move. So we've got some stuff about to happen.
It was time.
Yeah, I just saw that they're working. Don't worry, we're in here. They're working. I can see it. I'm making sure that they're working. Don't worry. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know you're busy. It's a very, very busy week, and people don't sleep, and so the time in between is valuable. So thank you for sharing it with us.
Yeah, thanks for
coming. And we'll catch up with you again at the start line on Sunday. We'll be down there, and maybe we can get 5 minutes of your time before you actually go race then.
We'd be happy to. And part of what you said earlier, what you guys will like, and it's one of my favorite parts, is actually after the race, is when the cars come down. It's a parade of all the finishers.
Yep.
And that's the coolest celebration because they all come down like as winners is what I say because they
they
beat
made
the
it.
mountain.
Yeah.
You know, because that is your biggest competitor is the mountain. You've got there, so everyone's all smiles and it's pretty awesome.
That's awesome. Well, this is a really exciting week for us. It's been super fun so far, and I mean road shows.
Yeah.
Road shows are good.
Yeah.
Keep doing road shows. Thank you, Rhys and Joey.
Yeah,
really
thanks, guys.
appreciate your time.
Thank you guys.
Bye.
We have transported. We are now Pikes Peak start line. Mr. James Robinson, Acura driver, is going to tell us how to drive Pikes Peak in a racing manner, not during a racing time.
That's right. I can get in big trouble for that.
In the Acura MDX Type S. And talk to me, Goose.
Got it. So actually what we're doing right now is we're very slowly rolling up to the actual start line here. And as you've probably heard or maybe you're aware, the Pikes Peak Hill Climb is actually a flying start. So they wave the green flag here, but the clock doesn't actually start here until we get through this gantry.
Oh, you know what's funny is I was wondering about the discrepancy because they had a sort of start line set up here, but then this big deal. Okay, that makes more sense.
Now the interesting part, at least that most of us do through that first left-hander and then this next right-hander, this is where you kind of get your first test of the grip and what you're going to be dealing with for your race run. This bottom section here is one of the fastest sections of the mountain, and it's super critical to get your pace set as you start your run. So this right-hander here is a bit puckery, mostly because you have all this stuff out here, and it's really easy to kind of get gimbal locked on going off like
this bright orange fence. I feel like could really distract you from the racing line there.
That's correct. But as you get through there, again, we're really underway now, moving at speed. At least for us in the NSXs, you're just brushing on about 100 miles an hour here through this left-hand corner.
So is this bottom section one of the fastest section because there are no real hairpins and your average speed is just higher? Because it's not like there's a lot of really long straightaways in this section.
Well, actually, that's the interesting part. There's three, I would say, long straightaways here in this lower section, and we're going to get up here in just a moment. But yeah, there's a series here in this beginning of basically more and more severe left-handers that lead us up to the first most noteworthy corner, which is Hansen's Corner, and I'll alert you when we get to it. But again, you're really kind of trying to get your mind wrapped around grip levels and how the car's feeling here in these first several lefts and rights. There's a little bit of an interesting bubble here that you hit. There's a
sort of
junction
there,
and so the car becomes a little bit upset across that. Here's your first left. This is fast, almost flat through here.
And are you dropping a tire in the dirt there?
It's white line to white line. Really trying to keep with that, just because it's pretty dangerous to cut a tire with any kind of debris that might be on those corners.
Yeah.
There's also, interestingly enough,
those little curbings
here, which not super cool to hit. This is now this left-hand corner. You can see it's a bit tighter, so you're having to do a little bit of braking through here, but then back on the power. As we roll up here to our final left-hander before we would move into the more notable sectors of the lower section.
We were just speaking to Rhys Millen, who was talking about the disappointment when all of a sudden one year those curbs were there.
Yes.
He was like, it used to be a place you could kind of cut, and no more.
No more, yeah.
How much does like the little bit of dust we see on the road in the center line, does that affect your grip at all, or are you're just charging forward and that's not really a problem?
You do get a little bit of a grip loss with that, and it's always one of those things you find out about. If it was rain the night before and it's a bit windy, you'll kind of get this wash of dust.
Same thing with the paint, with the road paint.
Well, especially when this gets wet, there's a lot of glass media in this, and so it becomes quite slippery.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So this is going through Hansen's, very late apex. You want to basically shoot for this last bale and then roll all the way here to the outside. You can see
someone had a little whoopsie there.
Yeah.
So are those bales there to display advertising, to keep spectators safe, or to keep you from cutting in places where you could cut?
You answered all of them.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is the one noteworthy area too to talk through. So this is called Horseshoe, and it's a very, very long right-hand corner. But this is, at least in my vehicle, this is the fastest speed that I hit on the lower section is through this right-hander.
Really?
So you'll notice it's not a big or tight right-hand corner. It's actually quite open. But yeah, you're full in it all the way through this corner flat. leading up to one of the first danger corners that is existing here in the lower section. It's called Engineer's Corner. And honestly, it's pretty easy to know about this corner if you're looking for some telltale signs, but a lot of rookie drivers make mistakes here. Because again, coming through Horseshoe, you are moving very, very quickly. So usually I'm just under about 115 miles an hour here as you come up into braking. Engineer's trigger for me is that sign.
The 15 mile an hour sign right there?
If it's there, that probably means we should slow down a bit.
Yeah.
But,
so what is 15 miles an hour for the regular folks means what speed for you? 40?
40 through here.
Yeah.
And so this is another very incredible section. So you'll come through this and you want to get back on power as quickly as you can, because now we're transitioning into the next long straightaway that we can attack here on the bottom. So we're moving close now to the first timed sector. So as you're watching on race day, they'll have all these sector times.
Right.
This first sector is going to be counted at the end of the long straightaway coming up, and it's called a halfway picnic.
It's not a good name. It's not halfway.
No, it's not halfway at all.
Yeah.
But you're really hard in it right now. This should be a flat left-hander for all of our cars at this point. Get a little bit of unsettling here across that junction.
Oh, that strip there. Yeah, that'll give you a little hop. Is it helpful to drive the road like we're doing right now, staying in this lane, going normal speeds, or is there just too much of a difference when you can use the whole road and can carry so much more speed?
No, it's critical to get up on the mountain and just get time going through the sectors. The thing that's interesting is during practice and qualifying, they break the hill up into 3 sections, and actually thinking about the hill when you're on your race day run in those 3 sections is quite helpful, because you take only on that information while you're in the sector, and then when you move through that, you kind of delete that from your head, move on to the next sector. So you're only remembering smaller chunks.
Right. And then you've got those sections in between the sectors that change your starting speed for the next sector.
Yep.
Because you're starting from a stop instead of starting like from 100,
Yep.
Where you at Glen Cove or whatever, where we were yesterday.
This is Gaylor Straits. Looks pretty straight, right? This is a really fun part of the course here, because you want to go through
Big
this
off
almost
camber
flat,
if you take the
and you
line
can
there.
get right up against those hay bales, but the car really kind of falls away here to the outside, and we're approaching our first hairpin now.
Is
Brown.
Engineer's Corner not considered a hairpin?
What's that?
Is
Sorry.
Engineers not considered a
No,
hairpin?
not a hairpin. This would be your first proper hairpin.
Where do they draw the line at hairpin?
Exactly, right?
Like a full 180.
Is it
Engineers is like
first gear?
160.
Is your hairpin? Is Engineers is second?
That's a second gear corner. This is a first gear corner here for sure. But this is one of the things you really want to start practicing on as you go through race day, is getting all the way out and really using the road to open that up as much as you can.
Yeah.
And these next several corners that we'll go through are a lot of fun, I think, as a driver, because this doesn't look like a good idea to approach flat, but you can. And so you're flat through here, no lift.
And it's it's a bit of a late apex there as well, right?
Certainly.
If you're flat, yeah.
It's interesting to see the camber changes. Like some of the turns have such nice camber, but some of them, as they open up, go off camber quite significantly. Especially if you're at speed.
Yeah, no, for sure. So big spring. There's a rock up there. You try not to look at it. If you've played, what is that? Codemasters game, the rally game that has Pikes Peak in it.
Like dirt or something?
Yeah, you'll notice that is incorrectly placed in the game, but in real life it's well back. Hey, any idea what this corner's called? Blue Sky.
Oh,
Yeah.
there you go.
This is a really fun corner too, because it's super long and there's a couple different ways to attack it. I generally am coming out here to the outside and trying to stay way out, because now you're going to tuck back in through here. But this is interesting too, because they've recently put down some crosswalk hatching. In the dry, there's no issue whatsoever, but you're really loaded up through this corner. And if it's damp at all, you're going to get some traction loss through that.
Is it worth like actually trying to split the hash marks with your wheels, or does that put you in the wrong position?
Well,
there?
in the rain, you probably would change your tactics. In the dry, you just kind of forget it and go for it.
Is there a dry line and a wet line, or is it just stay off the pavement and stay off the tar and that,
And the few times that I've had to go up in the rain, mostly what I'm trying to do is stay off of any of the painted lines.
Yeah.
And that's really been the most effective thing for me.
This seems like oversteer exit. It seems like everyone gets oversteer there.
If you've got power to put down, yeah, you're getting a lot of oversteer there. Fortunately for us, with being all-wheel drive cars, we're really not laying down that much scratch.
Yeah.
We're just trying to go.
The NSX you're driving, how modified is it?
It's modified from the sense that we've removed a lot of weight from it, and then we've added some aerodynamic elements. The turbos have been upsized, but not really for the purpose of making more power than stock. It's really just more of an altitude compensation. So again, we're not really making much more, I think, than a stock NSX would make. We just have been able to shave a decent amount of weight out of the car.
Do you change anything in terms of the front wheel drive motor programming or any of that stuff?
No, actually, all of that stuff, we've retained that.
Is it the Type S program? The Type S one, at least, though, so that they get some upgrades for Type S.
There,
yeah.
So this is the hairpin below Ski Hill. So this little straight we've just been on, this is then kind of the third main straight of the lower section that we can utilize to get some speed going. Obviously, you've got some Armco here, and that kind of is a good trigger point of, hey, I probably should slow down, because they generally don't put Armco on the fast stuff.
On Engineer's Corner, I noticed there were 2 signs on the trees that said no sitting or standing, and to your point, that's where a lot of rookies make mistakes. That's why.
This is so we come through here. Here's Ski Hill. This is another interesting corner, because if you're over here on the proper race line, it's a lot more open. I won't lie, I do go inside the white line here, and I'll do a little bit of a ditch hook.
But there's a lot of room. There's probably 24 inches inside the white line there.
That's right.
Is it, when you say white line to white line, is that a rule of the race, or is that just a personal policy most of the time?
they are very specific about trying to keep it white line to white line. Okay. Honestly, a lot of the cars that have aerodynamic elements, they'll sometimes clip these hay bales, and actually it puts danger in place for our other racers, because they might shatter the carbon fiber. Now you've got shrapnel for tires. Yeah. This corner here is called Rookies, and it's interesting for a couple reasons. One, terrible corner to go off on the outside, but the other reason is it actually, if you present it correctly and come just inside here, it's actually a pretty open corner. As we move up here a bit further, we're going to get to see Sump, which is a pretty famous corner complex here. I think Randy Popes did a pretty good job of making that famous.
There's a sign now for it.
They have named it. Yes,
Pastor Pope's Pond, I think it's called now. We just passed 11,000 feet.
But yeah, here we are coming up on Pope's Pond, or Pastor's Pond. This corner is neat too, because again, it's kind of a compound corner. You kind of approach it with
double
one
apex
line
situation.
Yep, and then you cut in again for a double apex.
Yeah, I think Randy just cooked his brakes, and I mean, if you overcook that, it is a jump.
Yeah,
it's a full-on Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah, you're going somewhere.
Yeah,
you probably had time almost to grab the GoPro and point and be like, "I'm so sorry."
Yeah.
Yeah, you have flight time.
Yeah, there's time to think about that.
This is a pretty flowing section, though.
Honestly, the lower is a really, really fun section to be on here. We're getting very close now to the end of the first lower section. This will be the qualifying section. So we have one last small little chicane here as we move up to this hairpin. Then this is going to lead us to the end of that qualifying section. But this is where, in your mind, you've essentially transitioned through the lower section and the corner complexes that are key to carry speed through. So you're kind of closing the book on that and getting ready to move towards the middle.
Do you ever get really kind of in the zone driving and then forget where you are?
Honestly, here, I think because we as the Acura racing team, because we're all volunteer based, and we're all associates, this isn't our full-time job, we're not professional race car drivers, we have a very strong interest in maintaining safety, and we drill into our drivers to make sure that they have really good course recognition. We don't want to have heroes up here. We're just trying to make sure that we get our cars up the hill safely. And
you ever leave the nav screen up so you get a little
that is
co-pilot?
Some cookies, right?
Yeah.
Because you are all engineers from Honda Acura, correct?
That's correct,
that's everyone's full-time job.
That's right.
And then you get into the racing program.
Lower sector finish. That's the timing beacon.
Okay.
So this is the interesting part for us, because you don't ever get to do this section at speed until race day.
Right.
It's not terribly difficult, but anyway, you come up through this as quickly as you can, and then your trigger point to really make sure that you know where you are as you can start to see the brake house up here in the little gift shack.
There's also right there's a lot of kitty litter on the road from where oil and coolant, because the cars turn around there. And so you may have some grip issues right in that little bit, yeah?
Oh, Magnum PI got busted.
Oh, hello, 308. Oh, you gotta love with an iridescent F-type.
Should we stop here and talk to
a
these
little
cats?
550. No,
Nice.
they're all right. They're good. The 308 is a bulletproof automobile.
Yeah.
No problems at all.
I've never heard of a problem.
So could you, which side do you
Left
go
side.
on? Left side of
Left
the
side.
gatehouse. Okay,
Present
left
the
side
left
of the
side.
gatehouse, yeah. That's the start of section 2,
Yep.
right at the gatehouse.
So here we are at the middle section. There's another really great bump.
This bump here, right?
Very unsettling to the car. So you really want to be not a superhero trying to carry a bunch of speed.
We were posted up right at that start line yesterday watching practice.
Okay.
And even when they were coming from a stop at the gatehouse, every car took such a big hop in that braking zone there.
Yeah, it's for sure a big deal trying to keep the car kind of buttoned up through there. Because again, you instead of going from a dead stop, you're going through the guard shack at about 100.
Yeah.
Because the course recognition here is not just about how many corners, where's the corner going. There's all these little tricks and bumps and things as well.
Yeah, and those are really the things you want to come through and take note of. You know, it's one thing to go ahead and learn the corner complexes, and honestly, from that perspective, that's where video games to me make a lot of sense, because you can hammer in corner recognition, but then being up here, this is where you see actual road deflection or bumps or jumps or jounces in the road. So that's what we want to come up here and scout out on a regular basis.
Big, fast section.
This is a really fast section here, Cove Creek. This is a fun bit because you're getting ready to head up to where the tree line ends. And this is one of those things where, we had tried to come up with kind of, I don't know if you'd call them little inane rules of the road, but in general, the left-handers are where things get dangerous. Right-handers are almost invariably pretty open in the middle section. And so if you're on a right-hand corner, you should be okay. And as you approach this one, this is coming up through Elk Gate.
Is that because it's a left or a right, or just because of how the road is laid out?
Just
here?
how the road's laid
Okay,
out. And this
yeah.
is something that I noticed early on in my career here. But if you don't see any guardrail and it's a right-hand corner in the middle section, there's really not going to be any danger present.
Oh, okay.
And so me coming through here, again, it's one of those, I know where I am, but I also am running that other piece of information of like, don't worry, it's okay to go for this. Because this is flat. You're
coming up it on the left side.
You're on the left side, up against the white line, flat. And so you're carrying a good head of steam. What I'm always looking for is I'm coming around this, that's Elk Gate. As you come through this, you're waiting to see Armco. Armco is only at these kind of danger corners for the hairpins. So even now, keep going.
Right
Okay,
there's Armco.
Now I'm into the binders to slow down for this hairpin.
And are you kind of aiming right for the beginning of the Armco there?
Yeah, well, I'm way out on the Armco side here, braking in straight. Then this is another fun section here because we're going to go through one of my favorite corners, which is Ragged Edge. So you're, again, flat on it on the inside here, transitioning to the outside. Again, don't worry about the fact there's an Armco. Just go to the outside. You're safe. And as you
You're
come
safe, he says, as I look down the 300-foot boulder-ridden cliff drop.
So here's a left-hand corner with Armco. Looks tight. It's actually not. This, on our cars, is a light lift, maybe just a brake dab, and then roll back on so you come in tight.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
Seriously?
Yeah, I'm going through this at about 70.
Oh, because it opens to a straight.
Opens straight up and you're going for it.
And the straightaway ahead of us
it's important
is...
to keep speed there,
You have to,
yeah.
because honestly, we're on a pretty good uphill slope.
Yeah.
But this is like an eighth of a mile straightaway almost that you're coming onto. Okay.
So yeah, you really want to keep on it hard through here. The car will get a little bit unsettled as you come into braking and go through the right-hander as you approach the left. So I generally am trying to get a little bit of braking done here before I start to feed the car through that right-hander. But here we are kind of presenting ourselves to this next left-hand hairpin. But I'm usually just in here, just touching on that line, and kind of diving.
And you're not giving it all the way away there.
No.
You're kind of keeping it middle right.
That's right. So widen this thing out as much as you can.
Does your car have a steering wheel or a yoke?
Yoke would be super cool, right? No. No, it's just a regular racing steering wheel. This is a neat corner here too, because again, it's hairpinish. It's somewhat tight, but actually you get a little bit of forgiveness on the outside. You can see that the apron kind of sticks out a bit.
Oh yeah. Oh, you get a little flavor
so
right there.
Just touch it out here, and that's pretty helpful.
Wow.
I kind of broke the rules there going over the W.
There's a few, but you had long viz. It was fine.
Right.
There's a few sections where you could kind of dip a wheel into that apron and get a little bit here and there.
Get something. This so here we are in the W's. This next couple of corner complexes I really enjoy. This one just because it makes for fantastic photography, and it also gives you a little bit of an internal pucker.
Yeah, this is the Larry Chen section.
Yep. So here's the right-hander. Right-handers are safe, right? So then you're hard on it, and you go all the way to the outside, and you get just a beautiful view of Colorado Springs, and I think into Kansas. But you're right out here on the edge of the road.
Yeah, and if you went off of it, which it does seem relatively safe, it's straight here, you would land in Kansas.
Yes, you would. But it's neat to be all the way out here and to really be hammering it and be like, man, this is insane.
But you also get a little bit of breathing room here because it's a long straight with long visibility.
Yep. And then same thing. Here comes Armco, so a hairpin sign. There's all kinds of driver cues that say, hey, we should probably be getting on the binders here in a minute.
Yeah.
So Foley's corner, everyone's familiar with. Yes.
Is that this corner?
Evo corner.
Us, but
Evo
not
corner.
necessarily
Yes.
everybody out in the world.
So the interesting part is that this is the sector just below Foley's corner, and it presents itself somewhat similarly. So as you're approaching this, you actually do need to know where you are, because this corner is still a pretty constant left-hander, and you will see Armco pretty quickly.
Uh-huh.
That's your trigger. Okay, that's fine. I'm just approaching another hairpin. You'll see on the next corner complex, it kind of presents itself the same, but as you come to that, it's a decreasing radius left, and there's no Armco, and it's very easy to overcook that corner.
And so that tricks you into thinking it's a safe corner that you can have some speed, but it actually is a similar shape to these Armco corners?
Yep. And so people use different, whether you're counting corners or if you're just kind of making sure that you have some sort of mind game you're playing to think, I know I went through the Armco corner, next is going to be Foley, so I'm getting ready for the end of the middle section.
Do you do some kind of testing, like verbal or visual tests with new drivers, like to test if they've memorized those kinds of things?
Well,
or
a lot of the things that I've found that's interesting is if you just take in-car video and you just randomly scrub it forward and hit start, where are you?
Yeah.
And you can see if they've, but again, here we go. It's not exactly the same, but it's kind of the same as the approach.
It looks like the last series for sure.
Right? But the interesting part is as you approach this, you'll notice that you come up to it, and then you can watch as the Jeep's going around here. He's tucking in more and more, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And there's your great way to find out if you can get down to sector 2 really fast.
Yeah. Very, very sketchy. Lots of exposure.
This is a fun corner too for drivers because in general, as you're back on it hard, coming up into 16 Mile, which is the end of the middle section. In general, you always have a ton of photographers parked up on this hill. So this is a really interesting look as the cars are coming up.
Well, if you've got a 400mm lens, you can catch a lot of the course from up here.
We can see all the way down to that brake shack right now, and that was many turns and hundreds of feet ago. Wow.
The problem is you want to come up here and give them a good show, so you want some late braking. It's really easy to overcook it, and then the worst part is you're on face and then it flattens, so it's really easy to stuff it there.
Ooh.
But yeah, here we are. This is the beacon or sector here for a middle section. So now next chapter we're moving on to the upper. And again, this sector here you don't really carry at much speed. But
Nice GT3.
yeah, that wasn't so bad.
We'll take that GT3. That's
perhaps
very good.
we could share.
Sorry, no offense to present company. A fine piece of engineering.
None taken.
991.2 GT3 on the mountain. So this section here you don't get to practice either because it's the 100 or so or a couple hundred yards in between the end of 2 and the beginning of 3.
That's correct. And so
Here's
here,
the start line for Devil's Playground.
yep. And we'll see if we can get the wave by.
Everything okay here? What's going on?
Well, this is where they typically want us to park, but because we've got magic passes, we're rolling through. All All right.
That guy's cool. I gave him a bacon, egg, and cheese the other day, so we could do whatever we want.
We're reaping the rewards. So that was the start here for the upper. Again, this is where once you've gone through the middle section, the middle section in a lot of cases is just a drag race in between each of the hairpins and just
Right.
having some corner recognition. Like we were talking about before, ragged, making sure you got a good entry to that is going to pay back a bunch of seconds. Upper now is it's very much a courage-based run because there's a lot of speed to be had up here. And it's easy to lose it just by getting a little bit uncomfortable. So
Every driver we've talked to, especially the experienced ones, say that the upper section is their favorite.
it's neat because, again, if you have confidence in the car and confidence in your course memory, you really can push it.
And it's also, you're only going up really 1,000 more feet,
right,
versus like 4,000, in the other sections, and you've got a long distance to do it.
Well, and the neat part too is we're now approaching one of the two actual downhills.
Oh yeah, true.
So now we're actually being able to pick up a lot of speed as we approach bottomless here. So again, you might want to there's a small maybe brake dab that might be made, but you really want to get back in it and just hammer down through here. This is then the fastest part of the course.
Whoa.
This
rundown.
Because you get a downhill, you've got a nice, pretty open corner into it.
Now, bottomless has always, I should say in recent years at least, has always had a bit of a bump here, and it's very unsettling to the car.
Looks like brand new tarmac,
They've made it, but as you will feel as we come into it, it actually still has the same drop. So as you're approaching, under braking, car's already compressed.
Oh yeah, right there.
There's still a bit of a lump.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's approached with caution, but try to maintain your speed through that section. The next corner complex up here is a lot of fun because it is actually flat if you're willing to do it. And for me, the trigger point for it is we've got these posts at the culverts that you can see sticking up here, the thin posts.
Uh-huh.
As we are approaching this, again, I'm committed. We're going to go quick, right? Okay. And so as you start to feed into this left-hander, you'll see another set of those posts present, and that gives you a frame of reference of how open the corner actually is. Because again, it doesn't look very open, but it kind of actually opens up more.
Oh, right.
Boom, there's
there.
my post. Oh, actually the corner's pretty open. Okay, keep going.
Wow, so you're taking this flat?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fucking ballsy. Jesus.
So,
because there is, if you overcook that, it's just boulders.
Yep.
You're going air and then boulders.
Now this corner is not a flat corner. It feels a bit off camberish and uncomfortable. You're over in this lane now, and you need to get some speed scrubbed. So I'm usually doing a little bit of braking, but the road kind of feels a bit off. And so it's a bit uncomfortable feeding through here, trying to kiss on this hay bale.
And it's even more off camber as we exit here.
Right.
Wow.
So it's kind of rolling out.
Wow, yeah, so you could end up in the ditch to the left.
Just not my fave. This corner here, again, I'm usually doing kind of a double entry to it. I come up to it, I've made a little bit of straight line braking here, rolling back in and tucking down in tight here to allow me to track out here for this short straight. And then once you've done your speed management and moved yourself out here, this is just a bit of a throttle breathe and then roll back on as you come into a little bit more of a downhill. And this is another fun section. This is, the Arivaten and like hand up sun. When you're in practice, there's a lot of sun blasting around this corner, so you're coming through usually with one hand up.
Yeah, Rob Holland went early the other day, and he said that right here he actually had to come to a complete stop because he literally couldn't see anything. Yep. Yeah.
Now, you can see over here when we're presented in the racing line, you are getting a bit of a bump over here. You want to try to get yourself transitioned down in here, and you can hug this pretty tight and maintain a lot of speed. So I'm generally just, again, breaking my own rule of trying to go white to white, but you can usually kind of carry a lot of speed through there and then let the car breathe back out. But we're getting, to me, this is where, for course recognition, inside of the chapter of the upper section, there's a sub-chapter, and this is where I'm now opening that playbook. And the reason why is, up until this point, we've talked about individual bumps here or little tiny, rolls in the road there. From here on in, this is where the road gets honestly pretty treacherous. We're going to go into Boulder Park here. Naming, I'm not sure why. But
Now, what makes this section? Because coming up here, the whole thing seems dangerous just because there's a lot of exposure. But if you could explain that a little bit.
Well, to me, exposure is dangerous if you actually go there, right? In a lot of sense, as you're approaching this as a road you're driving on, again, if you're saying I'm driving white to white, how do I manage my car to stay in these boundaries? If the surface is predictable and smooth, that's not a huge ask. But what ends up
really bumpy right here.
We're just starting to get into some of these bumps now, and this is where you're fighting inside your mind. Okay, I can go through here at a moderate pace and I can keep wheels on ground, or I can try to carry some speed to really maximize the last part of the run here. But you've got to be pretty strategic about where you're doing it.
Because some of these bumps, it feels like are 3 to 5 feet long. Like they're short duration, so it really upsets the car.
It really does, and the car, especially going through here through this kind of Boulder Park area, as you're coming through, we're going 16 miles an hour right now, and the car is still bumping around. Yeah. You're trying to go, 40 or 50 or 60 miles an hour through here. Oof. And the car is really jumping and bucking through here. We have a Motec data acquisition in our car, and so we're able to see that we're going to full droop. The car is chattering across this.
Wow.
Would you say you like your car set up softer or stiffer?
We actually run a pretty soft spring rate, not too terribly dissimilar from the factory spring rate. Mm-hmm.
Are you using the factory magnetic shock?
So actually we've used the factory shocks all the way up until this year. Just this year, we've swapped over to a Sox Motorsports 5-way damper, which has given us a little bit better ground control and made the car feel a bit safer through these bumps.
And if it's dry, are you driving on slicks?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So here we are. This is a fun corner too. Usually bales are a lot closer. These have literally been...
That one someone hit.
Yep, there's a marmot too.
Someone definitely tagged that.
Oh, nice marmot.
Nice marmot.
But again...
Do I look married? The toilet seeps up, man.
You're not much of a golfer, are you? Anyway, yeah, so the road here is funny because if you stay actually on the inside, the road is actually less undulated than outside. And I don't know if that's frost heaves or the fact that it's more exposed over here or something, but it's definitely one of those things where from a racing viewpoint, man, I'd like to be over here, please.
Yeah.
But it's actually, I usually try to tuck in, or at least midway on the road.
And then just come out once this garbage ends.
Well, there's also these, as Wart told us yesterday, there's these sections where water goes underneath the road, whether it's the ditch, and that's how they evacuate the water so it doesn't go over the road, and that causes some of this density, varying density, and then the frost heaves and all that stuff, and that's how you get these crazy shapes. And then here we have brand new tarmac, goes back to old tarmac, goes back to new tarmac, goes back to old tarmac. Does that stuff... Do you feel the difference in grip here?
I don't necessarily feel the difference in grip as much as you are just getting the undulations or the unweighting of the car. So then this chicanery, if we'll call it that, again, usually I'm trying to do kind of a goofy transition of I've ended up here, but I'm actually trying to kind of navigate back in towards the inside just because it's a bit smoother. And then we're coming up to one of the more difficult.
Also seems like it's a better setup if you can
get to that side. Right. This is a cog cut. This is where you can actually see the railway, the cog railway. It's really easy.
It's still operating?
Yeah, actually just updated it. This actually for me in 2017 is where I had a bit of a bobble because I tried to carry a bit more speed using some of these posts as braking points. You'll notice that you can probably get a decent amount of braking done here as the car is pushed into the road, but it immediately pops back up. And so actually in 17, I couldn't get enough braking in, and so I came up and actually had to do a reversal. I came up, brake, didn't go off the road here, but then had to back up and get going again. So I lost about 8 seconds on that run.
But you saved
but you were able to drive it out. What are the odds of having one here and being able to drive it out?
Oh, that was a blessing for sure.
Yeah, 8 seconds seems like a best case scenario there. Oh, that's a really shitty bit of
This is, the car is just skipping through some of this. Again, you're trying to get over here. This corner through here, you can do, kind of maintenance throttle, no braking. But again, in your mind now, you're like, okay, I'm literally 2 corners from the end. What's the win-loss?
Right.
really pushing it through
Right.
here.
This is when chess kind of comes into play. I think that I watched a video yesterday, Robin Shute, who qualified for first,
Yep.
and he was coming up this section, and you couldn't believe how bouncy his car was. I mean, it made Mercedes' F1 porpoising look adorable.
Yeah, it's like
right.
real skittish,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, but you're also getting? I mean, I feel like that the Acura, the NSX with that infinite torque vectoring that the all-wheel drive can do is really giving you a big hand on sections like this, because one of those wheels is always going to have some grip, right?
Yep. No, it's actually just a wonderful car to drive up here.
That's one of my favorite cars to drive on imperfect roads.
Yep.
The grip is like staggeringly good.
And the damping was very good, and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
suspension.
So here we are. This is kind of the last hairpin. Again, the kind of the road comes up. You can try to get as much braking done here before she pitches back onto the flat.
Wow.
And I've noticed every year that this is where you end up having still a decent amount of grit. And so even in our cars here at this altitude, you get a bit of an oversteer as you power out of this hairpin. So you
Well,
want
it's
to,
windy up here, so it probably
Yep.
carries a lot of the dust around and stuff.
and here we are coming up through the last corner. And this is again one of those ones where you can go through it quick, you can go through it at a moderate pace, just depending on where your stomach's landed at this point. But this is the flying finish. I've usually tried to stay here, and then I'm coming in tight to kind of finish across the finish line diagonally. But yeah, once you see here, there's the flag waving, and
Wow.
you know it's time for some donuts.
You got to remember to shut it down.
You also want to try and shut down because the road comes up and then turns.
Yeah.
And these things I've heard are terrible for the cars. Rocks.
He's gesturing to large boulders.
Yeah.
And humans.
And humans.
Don't
You
hit
don't hit
either
those
one.
either. That's a no-no.
So now we're up above the clouds.
The new Summit House.
There's a very nice new lodge up here.
Yeah, it's
Get
beautiful.
some donuts, and that was awesome, man. Thank you,
Yeah.
James. That was really educational.
No, I
I
appreciate
the time, and
I got to drive another car up the hill, so that was pretty sweet.
yeah, you get a little extra scouting run there
Yeah.
with massage seats.
Honestly,
and blue leather.
The blue, it made it just sublime.
Blue leather's good. We were just talking about how we don't see that anymore, and I hope the weather holds up so you get to have a dry run. It doesn't seem like it might, but by the time everyone else hears this, the race will have already happened. So,
Yep.
thank you for your time. Thanks to Acura for setting it up. We'll see all you guys on the next show.